Raising a child is no easy feat, and when it comes to meltdowns and tantrums, every onlooker and influencer has an opinion on the right way to handle this. But child behavioural specialist Karen Campbell warns that parenting advice on social media, such as gentle parenting, could be doing more harm than good. Karen is with me this morning. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Ryan.
Karen, nice to have you on the program. Can you tell me what is gentle parenting?
Well, it's sort of become very popular in recent times, and it's a way of parenting that acknowledges the children's feelings and how they're feeling in the moment. But unfortunately, what's happened, it's changed in the way it's been interpreted, and there's different ways of that parents are gentle parenting, and not all of it is based on what's actually good for children.
So what are they doing? What are people doing, in your eyes, doing wrong? Are they being too gentle, too soft on their children?
Well, I think gentle parenting, firstly, is good for gentle children. Because their temperaments are more placid, and it's a less intrusive way of parenting. However, children with strong temperaments, it's very difficult to parent with gentle parenting. It sort of needs something a little bit more robust. Parenting is also about helping children to develop skills in the process of managing and regulating their emotions, like effortful control. Now, if a parent is talking about feelings a lot of the time when a child is escalated, it sort of hijacks that process where children start to learn to develop regulation and control over their emotions in the moment.
Right, so are you seeing children come or parents coming to you with children who've got behaviour issues where they can't regulate their emotions?
Yes.
And is that because of specifically what parents are doing or not doing in earlier years?
Yes, I see a lot of that. So a lot of parents come to my service because they have children, around about the sort of 3 and 4 mark initially, and they're having these really huge tantrums, and they're going on for a long time. Now, what parents are doing is that they're giving a lot of attention in the moment by talking about feelings. Now, there's nothing wrong with talking about feelings, but you have to do it at the right timing, not while the child is escalated. Firstly, they're not really in their prefrontal cortex part of their brain or listening, but also it's very difficult when a child wants that attention. So quite often the tantrums are being extended during this time. And instead of helping children to use and develop their own skills in managing themselves and starting to self-regulate.
So in the moment, if I'm having a big meltdown, then my mum should basically zip it, like give as little attention to it as possible, as opposed to try and delve into how I'm feeling and my emotions and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So when a child is little, sometimes what you can do is set up a sort of a calm area, and then you can go and sit in that area, and the child quite often will follow you at that moment and sit next to them and model self-regulation. And it might be a calm box that you have there, and sort of you're doing breathing and things like that. So it's not abandoning the child, but it's also the young child, but it's not also giving direct attention for that behaviour, because it reinforces the behaviour, and this is where parents are getting really stuck. And this is what I help them with, to get the behaviour into a new pattern.
What about eating, Karen? Because I know this is another one that often comes up on the show, that we hear from parents about, oh, my kid doesn't like the healthy food, so I don't want them to starve, so I'll feed them crap, basically. What are your tips for parents who are struggling with that?
Well, I'm a little bit old school, I guess, but children generally don't starve. But there are ways to do that, to help them through that process, because a child's palate isn't developed. And so when they taste new foods, it's sort of, they can have a reaction to that. So generally, a good way of doing that is maybe having a couple of preferred foods, and then a food that's not so preferred, or a new food, and asking the child to just sort of look at the food, maybe touch it the first time with their tongue, that sort of thing, and start to acclimatise to that taste.
And that hopefully will avoid, as you say, they're not going to starve, so we don't have to worry about them going hungry. And what about the ADHD thing? That's another one, that a perennial issue for young people. That are doctors overdiagnosing? Is this are we creating a mountain out of a molehill here? What are you seeing? What's your opinion, Karen?
Okay, so that's a really important point. I think there is overdiagnosing in New Zealand, as in other countries, and that's because people generally don't understand behaviour. And so ADHD has some symptoms, or things like impulsivity, and difficulty regulating themselves in the moment or focusing. Quite often, if a child has not learned effortful control, and that's the part managing their own tantrums and things like that, as they become older, and managing their cognition and their behaviour in the moment, then what ends up happening is that their behaviours can sort of mimic ADHD. They can be seen as very similar. Also, with social media and different things like that, attention spans are a lot shorter, and so that has quite a bit of an influence as well. And so whilst parents are going along and wanting to get the right support for their children, sometimes what it actually is a learned behaviour pattern, because once learned behaviour patterns get stuck, it's very difficult for parents to know how to get them out of that pattern. And so therefore, quite often, they'll go to the GP and then there's an ADHD diagnosis.
Goodness me, Karen, it's refreshing to hear some what sounds a lot like common sense coming from a behavioural specialist this morning. Appreciate your time on the program. Thank you. That's Karen Campbell, child behavioural specialist.